Welcome to the Dom.Hockey Podcast, proudly presented by Bench Rates. Created by a former hockey player, Bench Rates uses a proprietary algorithm to assign a true monetary value to a player's on-ice contributions and lets you compare that value directly to his cap hit. Bench Rates evaluates professional players across leagues worldwide, including the NHL and AHL. Learn more at benchrates.com. Also presented by McKeen's Hockey. McKeen's produces the premier NHL draft guide featuring more than 200 player reports and comprehensive rankings. They also deliver in-depth prospect coverage through their annual team-by-team rankings and their trusted hockey pool yearbook. Visit mckeens.com and subscribe for just $16.50 Canadian for 3 months. Welcome into another Saturday morning episode of Dom.Hockey the Podcast. Dom, we've got a loaded show, pre-draft rankings, and a whole bunch of stuff to go over. Are you excited for this one?
Oh, definitely excited. Waiting for this one for a couple of days. The draft is 1 week away, actually 6 days away for round one. So let's go. Perfect.
Well, you set us up with a great guest from McKeen's. And without any further hesitation, we'll bring on Linc Zdanewicz from McKeen's Hockey. Linc, thank you so much for joining us, and really looking forward to hearing what you have to say about some of these guys.
Thank you guys for having me. I love to take an opportunity to talk about prospects. It's one of my favorite things to do. And man, you guys have a lot of picks this year, so it's going to be very exciting.
Yeah, the Bruins have
thanks for doing this, Linc. So thanks for doing this, Linc. You just so people know, you're Eastern for McKeen. You've also done some crossover scouting this year, you were telling me. You are a Philadelphia Flyers fan, but when it comes to draft, impartial, right? So we won't hold that against you.
Oh no, I'm very impartial. I like to keep my Flyers fandom, kind of tempered. Obviously, in the playoffs it was fun, but obviously I'm not going to hold anything against you guys. I'm more a fan of how teams are built, and you guys actually took one of my favorite players last year, a guy that I wanted on the Flyers, James Hagan. So, I'm rooting for him, and I'm hoping that he does well in yellow and black. So.
Yeah, I'm very excited about that pick myself. So, without further ado, just because we like to keep these short, Dom, you want to just start right off with who we have or who you have? Because let's face it, this is more your list. Where we're looking at for that Bruins first pick at 23rd?
Yeah, so Linc, what I did is I took your list at McKeen's and compared it to mine. So at 23, McKeen's has Mathis Preston, 5'11" right winger from with Vancouver, the WHL. I'll be honest, I had him at 20, and at 23, I had Nikita Klepov, 6 foot right winger from Saginaw of the OHL. So maybe you can give us your thoughts on them, starting with Preston, because he's your guy there at 23.
Well, my guy would incline that I'm a huge fan of him, and I will say I'm a little bit more of a Mathis Preston pessimist than the rest of the staff there at McKeen's. But in terms of what Preston brings, he's phenomenally talented. I mean, you don't see many other guys who can skate like him and handle the puck like him on a regular basis. He was injured this year, but he still put up a point per game. He got traded to Vancouver, kind of missed a good chunk of the season, but he still put up a very productive year. But that being said, I don't know if he's, in my opinion, the perfect pick for you guys at 23. There are a couple other guys that I would like a little bit more that would go a little bit ahead of him. I see Preston as a guy who is a ton of flash. He is a great offensive talent, but in terms of what he's got to translate to the next level, it doesn't seem to me that it will be completely seamless, as people are saying. Corey Prodman was actually on my podcast along with my co-host NHL Draft Pros earlier in the year, and we were talking about Preston, and a line that he said keeps sticking with me So I'm giving all credit to Corey for this when I say this, but Preston has all the flash in the world. Obviously, when you can stick handle like that, when you can skate like that, and you can create separation, you look like you're going to be a great player and you show up great on the highlight reel. But if you don't do anything with the space that you create and you can't get to the middle of the ice, then what sort of offensive dynamo are you? So I don't know. I have a lot of questions about Preston. Personally, he was not someone that I had in my first round, but he was close. Obviously, you can't keep that much talent too far away from the first round. But I don't think it would be a tremendous reach for Boston at this point, but I still believe that it would be a little bit of a reach at 23.
So the little bit that I had a chance to watch Preston, one of the things that I feel like I noticed, and I'll credit Dom for this one, because when I first saw Brett Harrison playing, it was after Dom pointed out how he was had a lack of physicality and would shy away, especially from plays in the corner. And I seem to find that a little bit in Preston's game as well. I noticed more than a few times where he kind of ducked an opportunity, either where he could lay a hit or block a shot or do something that, at least in my opinion, I look at and I go, that's how the Bruins have built their game. I'm not seeing the fit. I'm seeing maybe another potential Brett Harrison, all the skill in the world, but just not able to connect those Bruins-esque dots, if you will.
And yeah, you are correct with that sort of analysis. Preston is not, that's not Preston's game. He's barely, I think he weighed in at exactly 5'10" and 3/4 at the draft combine. He is not going to be somebody that's going to be laying out people, and he's not going to be a James Higgins type where he's going to develop a really solid defensive game after playing in college. I don't see him as a guy who's going to fit well into a two-way forward role. This guy is purely going to be scoring depth for you guys, and I know you guys have prioritized more skill in the more recent drafts, obviously with the draft of Higgins and a guy like Will Moore, but I don't think that this is really the first priority of a front office that Don Sweeney likes to run. That's just kind of where I've stuck on it. I'm totally open to being completely wrong about Preston. Obviously, he's got all that talent, but I have some questions naturally.
For sure.
So
Was there anyone? Oh, go ahead, Dom.
What about Klepov?
Yes, Nikita Klepov is a guy that I definitely like a little bit more. Personally, he's closer to my top 20, even though he's not there yet. I have him a little higher than you do, Dom, on my personal list. But Klepov he's a very phenomenal talent. Obviously, there's a little bit of similarity with him and Preston, where they are a lot of flash and not as much substance as you would have liked. But with Nikita Klepov, I trust him more in the offensive zone and to get to the middle of the ice than I do with Mathis Preston. He was a guy who he came into this year and he was playing in Sioux City and he looked pretty solid, but there were some questions about his game. There were questions about his pace. There were some questions about his overall skating. And he comes over to Saginaw, where they had just lost Michael Misa, and he almost completely replaced that level of production. 97 points, I believe, was his total. He looked really, really phenomenal. And I will fully say that a lot of those moments came in the offensive zone. This is a guy who really shines in the offensive zone, connecting plays, driving plays. He can be a guy that really kind of creates some magic and gets creative. He has some great highlights, obviously, but in terms of substance, he's still got to develop that two-way game. He's going to be going to Michigan State, which is a great sign. Obviously, that's a great program. Nightingale knows how to turn those guys into well-developed four-dimensional players. Like, look at Porter Martone, look at Riker Lee, what he's done in this past year. He's developed a good skating stance, and he's become a better skater. Sorry. But with Klepov, I think there's a couple things that need to be focused on in development. I think his speed it's good, but it's not game breaking at this point. He has a big frame that he needs to fill into, and he needs to get a bit more strong. Obviously, I think he has the balance with his skating where he can be able to, lay some hits, not be completely physical, but be somewhat of a presence. So he definitely has the tools. This is a player that I like a lot more in terms of what he can do and what he can create, and sort of how he views the offensive zone. That's where I land on Klepov.
Well, let me tell you what one NHL scout said to me. I want your thought on this. When I asked him about Klepov and at the Bruins pick, and his response to me was, Why would the Bruins draft him after the failures with Fabian Lysell? So, what do you think about that?
I think Fabian Lysell was a very different sort of situation where there was sort of some ego to his game that really kind of carried over. And I think there is an absolute sort of situation here where either Klepov or Preston can kind of become that sort of that pick. Neither of these two guys have a particularly developed B game in their system. I don't know how well they would do on a third line. I'm a little bit more confident with Klepov because I think he's got the speed and I think he has the play recognition to sort of develop a B game. Obviously, that's like me assuming that he's going to do that in college. There are a couple of guys that I like at pick 23 a little bit more if they fall. Like I think I mentioned a guy named Adam Novotny is a guy who could potentially fall all the way to 23. I've kind of liked his game a lot, even though he isn't as offensively inclined as Klepov or Preston. But yeah, that's definitely a possibility. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that neither Klepov or Preston will be Lysell because Lysell was very talented and look at Klepov and Preston. They're two very talented wingers at this point. They bring that flash and sizzle game, but they don't really have that sort of B game, that two-way sort of game. Klepov has a little bit more. That's obviously the risk that you're taking here with this sort of situation. But you guys seem to want them to take a winger and some flash with James Higgins. And I could totally see them doing that. Would be very happy with them, doing that with them, just supporting a guy like Higgins. Obviously, you guys don't really necessarily need centers. You've got Latorno on the way. Zeller's played center for a bit at North Dakota. You've got Chris Pelosi, who did really well at Quinnipiac this year. So you guys got a bunch of good guys. So,
was there anyone else that you would probably add to this group as well? I know a lot of fans are wanting them to target defensemen, especially on the right side, because they are extremely thin there. Is there anyone in that realm that you may want fans to keep an eye out, especially for Bruins fans to keep an eye out that late in the first?
Well, I don't know if this would be a guy that I would particularly target if I was Don Sweeney and I looked at kind of what I had in terms of on the blue line. But if you guys are looking for an offensively inclined right defenseman who's going to fall at 23, I think there are two guys that will fall right into your lap. Some people have talked about how Ryan Lynn and Tommy Blyle are two guys that are going to go a little higher. I don't think they're going to be guys who get picked in the top 20. I don't think any of those big three defensemen who are offensively inclined and like sub 6 foot, like Blyle, Villeneuve, and Lynn, are going to be picked before pick 20. So I think one or all three are probably going to fall into your lap. If you guys want a player like Ryan Lynn, by all means, he's going to Denver next year. He plays with the competition really well. He's a battler. I get a little worried about whether or not his skill set is going to transition outside of the WHL. But he's going to Denver. David Carl, he knows how to develop defensemen. That's a guy that I think would be a pretty solid bet at 23. But there's a couple other guys that I feel like are more Bruins style picks. Obviously, you have your big center, but there's another one on the board, Brooks Rogowski, who I'm a big fan of. There's another center that you could possibly like in Alexander Command. He can play the wing. He's a real big energy guy too. So a couple of those guys that I'd be a big fan of. You guys have pretty much your pick of the litter. I believe this draft class to be very deep, so you guys will be fine.
Yeah.
Dom, was there anyone else?
So people know, we could argue where the drop-offs are, but if you look at, say, pick 15 to pick 25, there's 40 million possible permutations. 40 million. All it takes is one team to change something. So, like any of the guys you mentioned are legitimate options because teams are not going to see everybody the same. So,
this is a very deep draft.
I don't think. It is like, So, unless you guys have anything to add, we'll move on to Pick 56 in the second round.
Well, I was just going to add to your point there. The other thing that no one's considering is a trade. That can change everything just because, if someone looks at a player, like Preston or, Klepov or someone, and they go at this late in the draft, we're going to trade down so we think we can get them at 26, 27. Well, now whoever jumped up in that place is going to change the entire board going forward. So all those extra permutations people need to account for as well. But yeah, you wanted to move on to the second round.
It's very rare. Very rare trades happen, Chris. Very rare.
Let's not say that. This is going to be. I think you're gonna see a lot of teams trade back in this draft. I have a feeling. So.
Well, because it is deep, right? So
yeah.
So at 56, Linc, this is going to probably draw some what from fans watching. Is you've got Marcus Ruck, okay, and I've got forgive my Russian here, Alon Shalislimov. I
think it's Shaquille Islamov or something. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted you.
I've been practicing my. Let's start with Ruck, because a lot of people are talking about him as a first rounder. There's a lot of talk of even Vancouver trading to try and get the 23rd pick from Boston and pick the Ruck brothers back to back, just like they did with the Sedins. I don't see him as a first rounder. I have him as a second rounder, a little bit higher than McKeen's has him. Let's start there.
I don't have the Ruck twins falling this far, but they are a little bit in the late first round, early second round sort of area. I think Ruck is going to be gone by this point. I think it's a safe bet to say that Marcus Ruck will not be available, nor Liam Ruck will be available at 56. But even if he was, Marcus is a very cerebral player still. I think his brother is the sort of speedy scorer, more engaged along the wall type of player, while Marcus is the more slow, calculated, and cerebral player. I mean, he racked up 80 plus assists this year on the WHL. He's a very smart player, this Marcus guy. And if he's there, man, there you go. That is a very good bet to slot into that middle bottom six role as a center or wing to kind of muck it up and, create some pretty decent scoring chances. You always will need some scoring depth in your third line, bottom six, maybe even middle six as well. That's a guy that Marcus Ruck can be. Very smart player. Definitely like what he can do and what he brings. The guy who's probably going to be available at 56, more likely is going to be Alan Shaquille Islamov. Look, I'm Polish, guys, but I'm trying to get my Russian, Eastern European bases covered or whatnot. So whatever. But the things with Shaquille Islamov is that this guy has some speed. Obviously, he produced at a pretty solid level. I mean, he was the MHL. I mean, he put up 35 points, 31 games. Not so much in the playoffs, but one of the unique things about him is he is one of the many players in this draft class who are 2008 born players in September. So he is around 2 weeks away from being available for next year's draft class. That youth, that energy that he brings to the ice, it's only going to get better. It's only going to get stronger. He could grow up a bit more. He's a pretty speedy guy. I really like what he can do on the rush. Obviously, you need guys who are very effective on the rush. They play a very fast, supported game. He is a bit of a wild guy. He likes to run, but I always like guys who can skate well and are a bit more aggressive, because you can kind of, tame that wild horse and whatnot. That's always been my belief. He's a bit raw, but definitely somebody that is a solid bet. I think the second round may be a little early, but maybe third round would be a good choice. But obviously, if you feel like this player is, if you believe in the speed, if you believe in his scoring talent, if you believe in what he can bring to that level and what he's shown already at the NHL, then he's definitely a great pick.
Yeah, and he's a right winger too, which the Bruins are sorely lacking. So, and the Bruins for years have been shy of Russians, but not so much lately. So, like they brought Nikita Zadorov in.
There you go.
You know, they drafted Emil Gain from the MHL last year. So
that was a good pick.
They're definitely, yeah, it was. Chris, anything?
I got nothing on him, and I'm just going to credit you both for trying to. I would butcher that last name more than anything. So props for even trying, and hopefully at some point we can get a true pronunciation from it. And it's one of those that's not as complicated as it looks as some of the other ones. But Dom, who did you have? The Bruins have three couple picks in the third round, but more in the fourth. So obviously the fourth will take up a little bit more time, but who did you have kind of for them to target in the third round? Because that's where you're going to start to see more of the trade ups, the trades down, at least that we've seen in Don Sweeney's history.
Well, I think there's some talent still here in the third round. Pick 88. I'm going to start with left defenseman from Sioux Falls in the USHL. You haven't met number 88. Linc is Matthew Grimes. And then I'm going to get into one that I know you and I personally agree on, but McKeen doesn't. We'll get to him in a minute. But Matthew Grimes first.
First of all, you're talking to the right guy for Matthew Grimes. Me and my boss Brock have been one of the two biggest supporters for this guy pretty much for the entire year. He's one of my highest rated overraters in this entire draft. He played for Sioux Falls this year, and he is just an electric defenseman. This is a guy that we talk about every single year. There's just seems to be a guy that gets to the NCAA and produces such a dynamic offensive game. And people are like, how did this guy go undrafted for so long? There was a guy like Eric Polkamp. He's now going over to the Sharks after being a Hobey Baker finalist in Denver. He was undrafted for a year or two. And there are a couple more of those guys. Matthew Grimes is one of those dudes. Last year, he, again, obviously didn't have the strong season that he had this year. He switched his commitment from, I don't remember where. I think he was at Minnesota, and now he's committed to BC. So he'll be in Chestnut Hill for you guys if you end up picking him. He is going to be a really good defenseman. The speed is there with him. The dynamism is there with him. He's 6'1". He's able to create plays. He's able to back check really well. I see a defenseman here who has a lot of good traits in the making. There's a lot of pro habits in the transition game, in his retrievals. When he activates along the wall in the middle of the ice, he sees the offensive zone really, really well. And he's 19. So you're kind of getting a year of development out of the way.
Yeah.
He may only last 2 years in college before he's playing up for the Bruins. Is this guy a number one defenseman? I don't think so. I don't think that he's necessarily an all situations guy at the next level. But if you're getting a guy who's like a 4 or 5 on your team, and he is a left shot who can provide some offense, be some energy, 18 minutes a night, second power play, maybe even first power play, this is a guy you pounce on. Maybe not even in the third round. Maybe you get him in the second round. That's how high I've been on him this year. Me and Brock Otten have been huge fans of him. One of the guys that I will defend till the day I die. He's probably gonna do very well at Boston College. I do feel very strongly about him this way. He did not get placed by Central Scouting this year. He was not ranked in their final rankings.
No,
and I don't think that shouldn't dissuade anybody. I think people just need to watch his game and what he can bring. This is a good player. I'd say bet on upside, bet on talent, especially in the third round. If this guy gets to 88, that call better be in the second the clock starts counting down. So
Yeah, central scouting isn't that big on draft reentries anyway. When they do their rankings, what I like is that he fits the new era type defenseman uh, who can move the puck, and the Bruins' focus going forward is going to be getting their defense to better transition. And let's face it, they lack that on the back end now. I'm not saying that Grimes will come in next year. He's obviously a few years away.
he's a few years away.
If he makes it. Yeah. So let's move on to one. This is a big one for me because I actually have him in the second round, and I know that you like him better than where McKeen has ranked him. So now I get to practice my sweep and go with Jonas Lagerberg, who is a 6'2", 185-pound right winger. Again, the Bruins lack that in their system and up in the big team. So your thoughts on him?
I'll tell you why he fell on McKeen's list. I think he played only 13 games this year. I think he broke his leg or something like that in the early part of this year. And yeah,
I think it was his ankle.
The point is, with a small sample size, you don't have the trust you would have in a guy who with a larger sample size, and that's not necessarily his fault. He's going to be going to probably a better situation where he's going to be kind of seen as more of a guy that they need to take time on. But it's my belief, and it's the belief of some in McKeen's as well, that if he would have played the whole season, he would have been a very phenomenal prospect, a guy who would have definitely been in the second round, like you or I have him, potentially maybe even in the ends of the first round. He played up in the Swedish league, and he did not look too out of place when he did there. He's a bigger guy. I think I got to check because I have this pulled up right here. Yeah, he's at 6'2", 185. Obviously, there's a lot that he needs to still fill out in terms of his sort of overall build. But he put up 9 goals in 9 games and 7 assists to boot, 16 points in 9 games, the J20. That is very phenomenal. There's a lot of scoring potential in there. And at the third round, if this guy gets there, why not take a bet on a winger like that? Why not take a bet on a winger who has speed, has a good shot, could fill out, get bigger, play a bit more of a two-way game? He was showing flashes of that along the wall. Obviously, it's against North American ice. Obviously, it was on European ice, and I mean he'll be restricted to more constricted corners in North American ice. But let him play over in the men's league over there for a couple more years. Just take him with the third round pick. You never know. You could get a really smart pick here with Lagerberg Hohen or something like that. I can't say his name. Look, guys, I was over in Sweden for a little bit last year. I'm still trying to get down the pronunciation, but this is definitely a really smart bet at the third round. This is a guy that if he gets there, why not take the chance? Why not take the chance on the offensive upside? Why not take the chance on what he could be? It's my firm belief that he will be gone at this point. Central Scouting ranks him as their 20th European skater, and I don't think that type of player gets to the third round. I think he'll be gone in the middle to late part of the second round, just because people aren't like unsure. But he's shown some really good things this year in a short sample size, and I think next year he's really going to surprise a lot of people. So that's where I've got him.
I agree with you 100%. I got one more name, but Chris, any thoughts there?
The only thought that I had was, and I'm sure, especially the fan side of people's brain are going to make the connection. And it really kind of seems like teams are probably not going to shy away from a player with the small sample size, simply because that's the same situation the Islanders found themselves in last year with Matthew Schaefer. And that worked out quite well for them, I would say. So, if the player has the talent, like you said, I think more teams are going to start to bet on the talent regardless of, a little different if the sample size was 2 or 3 games, but if you've got a dozen or so games under your belt and consistency is there, I think more teams are going to be willing to take that risk, especially when it's a second, third, fourth round pick.
We should preface by saying I don't think even Matthew Schaefer's biggest supporters would think that he was going to do what he did this year. That was phenomenal.
Totally.
It surpassed all expectation. I believe. I don't think any reasonable person would have said, yeah, he would have put up all those points, broke Brian Leach's rookie goal record for an 18-year-old or something like that. That's insane. I don't think anyone would have ever reasonably thought that. But no, yeah, with the smaller sample size, it's not something that people are going to be more averse to anymore, especially in the third round. I think one of the big reasons why some people were averse to it last year, and I raised some concerns even last year in the room with McKeen's about Schaefer going first overall because of the 17. Like, again, we didn't know. But now, obviously, it's less of a concern for us. I'm fully saying that because, look, in this industry, you're going to get egg on your face a little bit with some prospects. There are going to be some guys in a couple of years that aren't going to pan out that I was fans of. So we'll see. Maybe Jonas Lagerberg-Cohen was like a top 10 pick from this draft class, and I had him all the way in the second round. So, there's always going to be stuff like that.
Yeah, Dom, you said you had a couple other names you wanted to get to here.
Yeah, well, one more in the third round is another right winger, 6'1", 215 pounds, built like a tank, from Drummondville in the QMJHL, is Louis Felix Bork. You had him early 90s, I think, 92.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on him?
He's an energy guy. Obviously, this guy runs around. He throws his weight around. This is a very Boston Bruins style pick. He put up, I don't know if he hit 50 points this year, but I know he was close. He was under a point per game, but for Drummondville, this guy ran around, threw his body around a bit, played a bit of that crash and bang style, had a little bit of some flash, but he has some tools. There's some very interesting parts here in his game. He's another late birthday in this draft class where he is going to have a lot of runway next year. I think he's going back to Drummondville. I don't know if he's committed to college yet. But this is the guy I would absolutely love to see in the Hockey East, just throwing his weight around for a blue, one of those random teams like Quinnipiac or something like that. Quinnipiac's not random. I'm just trying to rage bait all of Connecticut right now. But this guy's a very fun player to watch. In terms of what he will bring with an offensive upside standpoint, I don't think he's a guy that goes a little bit higher than the third round. I think he will definitely be available here at the third, because now we're getting to the point where if some players are liked by some teams, they will be picked earlier. I don't think that's the case here with Bork. There are a couple other guys who do what he does and better, in my opinion. Some guys are faster, more physical, but Bork is a good bet around the late third round. Definitely a guy that I would look at. McKeen's has him 92. I'm a little bit further back on him, but he's definitely still in my top 100.
And for Bruins fans asking, no relation to Ray.
No, a little bit more French.
Yeah.
Were there any other names either one of you had to add for the third round as options?
He may be gone at this point, but if you guys like defensemen, I want to throw out the name Timofey Runso. He's an overager, an American. He was playing in Victoria this year. Just a very heavy guy. He likes to throw his weight around. I saw him as a guy this is a very Boston Bruins style guy. He's got a very intriguing game, good shot. I think he's going, where is he going to college next year? I forget where he's going to college next year, but that's a guy that I've kind of highlighted. He's an overager, but he's definitely a guy that could definitely fall to the third round and be an interesting pick for the Bruins.
Yeah, well, they're always saying that Bruins pick Bruins, so it sounds like he could be someone who falls in line with that. Now, this is where things stood out for me from you, Dom, and I know we talked a little bit about it before Linc jumped on, but this fourth round, you went with a lot more goaltenders than I was anticipating. So can you just explain why you went that way, Dom? And Linc, I'm curious, once you hear this from Dom, if your mindset is kind of on a similar track for this team.
So I have a couple of thoughts here on the fourth round. they're because they do have 3 picks. They moved up from 120 to 104 with the trade with St. I think they're going to use a combination of one of those 3 picks and maybe a prospect that they don't see having a future in Boston, trying to move up into the 3rd round. Or another scenario I could see is them trading one of those picks, probably 120, if there's somebody there that another team really likes, for a pick for next year where they're down a couple of picks. Or here's the thing. I see them drafting a goalie in this round because they really need, I don't know, they need to find a goaltender in the draft. The last one they drafted, I think, was Reed Dick, and they let him walk. They let Phil Sved, they didn't sign him to a contract this year. We don't know what's happening with Simon Zajac in Providence. So I don't know what your thoughts are, Linc, but at 104, excuse me, Ottawa 67. He's only 6 foot tall, so not the biggest goaltender out there, and not what team now. Is Ryder Federer-Wolf of the Ottawa 67s. So you're
obviously, when you're doing smaller goalies at this point, there's a bit of critique and criticism that goes with them. Because they're not what's favored right now. Obviously, you need to be above 6 foot to become a goaltender, or else you won't even be looked at. There's no Arders Earbays anymore, unfortunately. I'm 5'9", and sometimes I wish I could be a goalie and do that again, but it wouldn't end up panning out. But in terms of what types of players kind of come out of these smaller goalies, with Ryder Federer-Wolf, he is a battler. This guy goes to war every single time he's on the ice. You can feel the passion that he exudes. You can feel the passion that he exudes in every single shift, or every single night that he's out there. He put up a .923 this year, just above a 2 goals saved every time he was out. This is a phenomenal player. I think he had 6 shutouts this year too. This is a guy who's going to Penn State next year, and he is going to battle for that spot. He is the character of guys at Penn State, and I went to Penn State a couple times this year to scout, obviously to watch Gavin McKenna. I mean, guy was electric this year. But scout, just watch Gavin McKenna. I mean, I love making an excuse to watch that guy. Yeah. But going there next year, he fits the character of a lot of guys in Happy Valley. He's small, but he's very gritty, and he does not let that get in his way. He is going to try to win that starter's role from the jump, and you want that competitiveness. You want that energy from your goalie. You want that guy who is never going to just kind of take a shift off or miss a puck. This is a guy who is very, very competitive, and that's a guy that I want. That's the sort of spirit I want in my goalies. He's got a lot of athleticism too. A very, very quick goaltender as well. I think he's an American, right, too? I don't know if that factors into for you guys, but this is a guy who is a battler. He reminds me a bit of obviously smaller goalies like Jack Ivankovic. I wasn't the biggest fan of Ivankovic going in the first round last year. Some people had him as their first ranked goalie last year. And he was pretty good at Michigan too. That's a sort of a path that we could see here with Federer-Wolf. I think he's going to Federer-Wolf, or I've totally been mispronouncing his name the entire time. That's bad on me. But whenever I've seen this guy play, you can just see he is a battler, and he was going to carry that over to the NHL. I don't know if he is a certainty in the NHL, but he is sure going to be a very competitive NCAA goalie, and that's something I personally would want to bet on. I have him a little bit higher than some of the other more traditional 6'7", 6'4" goalies on my list, but he's not my number one. He's barely in the top. He's in the top 5 for goalies for me. I would say like probably like number 5. This is a very competitive goalie. I like him a lot.
Well, I don't like doing comps myself, but he reminds me a lot of Michael DiPietro. A lot back in their junior days.
Yeah. But obviously that's tough to, it's obviously tough to say because DiPietro he was super hyped, I remember, and didn't really become that goaltender that everyone thought he was going to be. But with Federwolf, I don't think he's going to be like a surefire starter. But right now, with how long term you guys have Swayman, you need to start taking singles with everybody you can get. And if he can be a really good backup or a fringe starter or someone who can take some minutes off of an aging Swayman, that's a guy that you can get.
I was going to say, Dom, don't get too many more people excited about a DiPietro comparison because we're already in a DiPietro frenzy around here.
There you go.
I know, Dom, you had a few other goaltenders. Were there anyone that you wanted to target?
Yeah. So there's that you've got at 111. Bigger goalie, 6'3", 190 pounds. Played in Slovakia U20 is Samuel Rennick. Big goaltender. But I'm going to get to a couple more in the next round that are even bigger. So let's start with him, and then I'm going to throw a defenseman at you in that spot.
Good. Yeah, no, I'm ready. With Rennick, this is a guy who, look, he's a very smart player. Obviously, he recognized that he was not going to get the ice time necessary at Dukla Trenčín. He was playing pretty much up their system. I think he started this year. I'll actually look this up. But he started after he played at their U20 squad like a lot last year. He started in the U18 level, and he played in the U18 a couple times this year, but he looked really good at the U20 level, and he wasn't getting that look at the men's level in Slovakia, which obviously you would like to see, as it is not obviously the peak of men's leagues in Europe, but it's certainly not the worst. Obviously, you want to see him get some men's league time, but he came over to the USHL, and it was a really good move for him. He played very well for the Force this year, 918, 220. But he only played 9 games, so can't get too excited with the sample size. But I think with what he's shown this year, this is another player who is a very, very passionate battler. This guy loves the pressure. He steps up into it. He learned a lot when he came over to the USHL, and he kind of taught a lot to that Fargo Force team. He kept them in a lot of games. They're a pretty good team this year too. He's a good player. In terms of what he brings from a technical standpoint, and also he is a double overager. I thought I'd mention as well. He turns 20 in June. Or no, my bad. I'm thinking about somebody else. My bad. I'm crossed my wires. No, Hrenak he's 18. He turned 18 this year. He's not double overager. Apologies. He's not the most technical. He's not the most technically sound guy. And he's not, I would say, the most athletic, but you're getting a guy who has the building blocks to become a very solid goalie. I would like to see where he commits to college, because that's kind of where we're watching at this point. If you're in a junior league in the United States or Canada, you're going to be going to college probably. So I'd like to see where he will go. I would love to see him go to an NCHC school. I think that he does really well under a lot of fast pressure. I think that would be very good for his development. Though I will say I have a couple of other goaltenders ahead of him.
So let me ask you this, Linc, because we try a lot to compare European to North American. Obviously, like you said, very small sample size in the USHL. What can we take from his time in Slovakia? Like, it's hard to compare a European goalie to a North American goaltender because A, the game is different. B, the angles at which players come at you is different because of the wider ice. Talk about that a little bit if you could.
You can develop your tracking pretty well in Europe. It's obviously not as chaotic where there's a lot of, there's not as much bodies in front of the net as there is in the North American ice, obviously. But you can develop your tracking a lot better there. He had 2 pretty good seasons with the U20 squad before coming over to the USHL this year. And I think that prepared him pretty well. He tracks the puck well. He reads the play very well. That's something that is working in his favor. I think he's going to play either another year in the USHL. Maybe he plays in the CHL next year. Who knows what he'll do, but I think he's very well equipped to be a very good starter at the junior level and then develop into a pretty good starter at the NCAA level. And maybe that turns him into a pretty good goalie prospect along the way. I'm not the big fan of him, I will say, but I like some other guys a little bit more. But this is a battler. This is a guy that I think is a good bet for sure, especially in the 4th.
Dom, you also mentioned that you had a defender you wanted to throw his way.
Yeah, so 6'1", 185-pound, less shot defenseman, 3 in the OHL. Sorry, Kalen Cross. So he's a guy I tracked a lot this season, being in Ontario and going to a lot of OHL games. Your thoughts on him, Linc, if you can share that with us?
Yeah, I'm going to sound like a broken record because there's some guys that I've described like this as well, but he's a very mobile defenseman, left shot, but he plays the 2-way game pretty well. He is a little bit further back on my board, and obviously with McKeen's, I think he's outside the top 100, and if I'm not mistaken as well. But that's purely because that's the belief that there's a lot of other players that do what he does a little bit better. But still not here in the 4th round. Mobility on your back end, you want to take as much shots as you can. I like what Callum brings. He's pretty cerebral, especially in transition. I think he's a very smart player. I just don't think that he's the most dynamic. I think he can develop that sort of dynamism. He can get some more speed under him. He's probably a player who plays another year in the OHL. You would like to see ideally more offensive production from him. He probably goes to college as well. He's definitely a guy that is worth taking a chance on the 4th, maybe 5th round. I don't have any problems with a guy like this at this point. He's just some guy that I think you can get better versions of earlier in the draft. There are players like this that you can find earlier, but if you believe in the player, you believe in the skating, you believe in what he does in transition, what he does in the offensive zone, and the sort of defender that he is, go ahead. Because I think this guy could transition really well into becoming a 7th or 6th defenseman at the NHL level if he develops.
And 4th round has been a round where you can get really good value overall. So
of course, and the Bruins have time and time again. You guys have gotten later round picks, especially for your defensemen that have panned out and looked really well.
Yeah, and I know we didn't really have too much in the way of the 5th round because when we first started putting all this together, they didn't have a 5th round draft pick. But Dom, I know you had at least one name that you wanted to go over for the 5th round.
Well, no, we still have to finish the 4th round. Pick one.
Oh, did I forget someone?
Yeah. Oh, there's a few guys. So traded 120.
The goalie, right?
Moved up to 104, but we still have 122. Well, there's a couple goalies I want to ask you about, and one I really like, but I have one ahead of them. But one I really like. You have McKeen's has at 122, 6'5", 200-pound goaltender from the USNDT is Brady Oling, and like mass goaltender at 6'5", but I'm going to throw another one at you that's even bigger. But I want to start with Brady Nolan here.
Yeah, Nolan is a guy that I briefly got to talk to at the World Juniors. He played, as we all know, he was shoved out for that really tough Sweden game by Bob Motzko. I still don't know why he was shoving a 17-year-old out to play Sweden at the World Juniors for his first ever like international game at the U20 level. But to his credit, I don't think he did all that well. I don't think he did all that bad. I think he got bailed out. He didn't get bailed out. He didn't get really helped by his defense. He had some ugly defense in front of him. I'll give him credit, and he battled. This is a guy who he's a very mechanically sound goalie. I mean, you see the guys that come through the US and TDP, and they're very tight in terms of like the moves that they make. They're very efficient. And Noling is one of those guys who he has the potential to become a guy who rises up and becomes a starter, and becomes a really good one at that. Obviously, he's got a bit of a path. He's going to be a bit of a project. He did not look particularly great in US and TDP play, in the USHL, but there are just some moments. There have been games that I've seen him, and I'm just like, man, this guy is looking like the best goaltender in the class. I go back to the USN TDP CHL Challenge where he was phenomenal. There have been some international events where he looked phenomenal as well. I think he looked pretty good in the Sweden game until he got pulled, and there was obviously a lot of pressure. I don't really blame him for cracking under that pressure. That's a lot of pressure for an 18-year-old, a 17-year-old to deal with. And oh man, he's committed to B. I feel horrible that I don't know this off the top of my head, but I think he's committed to BU. Correct?
Well, I think it is. Yeah.
I want to check that that's correct, because I don't want to just spout that. Yeah, he's committed to BU. He's not going to be there next year, but he will be there in 2 years. He's going to a good system. Yep. Yes. They have Mikhail Yegorov right now, or I think he may already be off to with the Devils of the AHL. After a year where he got just no help there. But BU, I think he's going to be doing fine. They always get very good defensive prospects. BU is one of the pinnacles of hockey, collegiate scouting at this point, or collegiate recruiting at this point. And Noling is going to be in a good system. I think he's got a very good development path. And as I've preferred more goalies, I have got a few goalies ahead of him. I've still kept him as a guy that I've reasonably said, this guy he's got so much potential. He's got so much working in his favor. He's got all of that. He's got all that stuff that you want in a goalie. So I've never been too low on him. He's still in my top 5 for goalies.
Chris?
No, I think I remember catching some of the I'd call them lowlights of that Sweden game that you were talking about, but I mean, from everything that I saw, like you said, when the defense isn't there in front of you and you can still post a above 80 save percentage, and yet you're still somehow giving up, 6-7 goals plus, you can't look at the numbers. You have to really look at the mechanics,
context is important. Yeah. Context is very important in this sort of situation. And I was there. I saw how well he played, and then just out of nowhere, the puck goes off Logan Hendler's stick, and it goes into the net. And from that point, it kind of just got to a point where there was no help, and he couldn't deal with that pressure. But I don't know why Bob Motzko threw him into that fire to begin with. Like that there was a lot of questionable coaching decisions at that point. I was like, what is he doing? What's going on? And he got fired from Minnesota this year. Now they have St. Cloud's old guy. They've got a lot of. I have a lot more trust in Minnesota now this year. Obviously, I don't want to crap on Motzko too much. He went to a national championship, but that was a situation that I was like, I don't understand what's going on here. But Noling, the fact that he was even in that situation, the fact that he made the team, and there were some people that really thought that he was the most qualified goaltender to make that team. It's very impressive. It's a very good sign. This guy is very mature at a young age.
I was going to say, one of the questions that popped into my head as you were talking about that, and being there, you would have a much better perspective about his body language. Dom, I know this is something that you've tried to make our fans and our viewers really pay attention to when they're at games. If they're trying to look at a player, is how are they with their demeanor? And in a game like that, for a goaltender where the game's just clearly not going their way, no matter what they do. The question that I would have is, what was his body language like? You mentioned his maturity. Was he able to remain as competitive as you'd want to see him? Did he let some of those goals, like, could you see those having a mental effect on him, or was he able to play through those?
When I talked to him, this was before he was thrust into that role, but there's an energy about this kid that you just kind of you can't really find in other people. He's a very energetic guy. He's got positivity. I thought he was a nice guy. I didn't really get to see him much after that game. Obviously, I that was one of the games where I was like, okay, I don't think I should be interviewing any of these guys. I don't think I should be talking to any of them, just because it's a rough, when you lose on your home soil in front of all those fans. It's tough. It's really tough. And I will fully say, in this situation, no matter what his expression was like, even if he was completely lost it after that game, I wouldn't blame him. I think he was thrust out in an unfair situation. That's just kind of where I land on that. And I really hope that he does well for the rest of his career. I mean, this is a good kid. I would love to see the Bruins draft him. That'd be great.
Linc, I know we said we'd only keep you for an hour. There's a couple more names if you got the time. If not,
let's keep going. Let's keep going.
All right. So before we get to that other goalie, earlier when we were talking about Lagerberger Hoon, I said there's one that we totally disagree on. But I thought of another player here that we did, at least with McKeen's rankings, we disagree on. And I like this guy, especially if you're able to get Nikita Klepov in the first round at 23. His line mate in Saginaw, and he's a draft re-entry, I'll give you that, is
double
Igor
one at that.
Barabanov.
He is a double re-entry.
Yeah, double re-entry.
That is, yeah,
exactly. Yes.
I knew who you were talking about immediately.
So
and yeah, I think this is sort of a different situation because Saginaw, it's like a parallel of last year almost. They had Michael Misa last year with oh my gosh, Chernyshov, right? And Chernyshov was a beast, and he was feeding off the energy that Michael Misa was given, and that was sort of what was happening this year with Barabanov and Klepov. With Barabanov, he's a smaller guy, or he at least looks smaller than he is. I think he's what is he, 6 foot even, but he plays smaller. He looks smaller. This is a skill guy. This is a guy who's got just a skill game. I understand why he wasn't drafted twice over, but this is a good bet on skill. If you get a guy like Klepov in the first round, and you see this guy available in the 4th round, I'd go for it. He's quick. He is a very quick processing sort of player. So his mind and his hands, play as quick as his feet. And that's a player that could definitely be used, have some use in the NHL. Obviously, he turns 20. This is a guy who you don't have as much runway on as you would have with other guys. You would hope that he is doing this already in your organization by this point. But we'll see what he does. We'll see where he commits to college. We'll see what he will do for. We'll see who drafts him. Obviously, this is the guy that I have a lot more question marks on than anyone else. I don't know where you have him particularly per se, but I lean sort of with McKeen's with this one, where I have him a little bit lower than some people would expect. Certainly lower than NHL Central Scouting, but I don't think this is a player who is like other double overagers in the past. He's not a Francesco Del Elche. He's certainly not a Charlie Serrato. So that's where I've got. That's really much what I have on him, pretty much. You know what he's got in terms of the skill.
Yeah,
it's just the translatability.
I'm almost embarrassed to say I had him in the 3rd round. So, yeah.
Oh, don't be embarrassed. Come on.
Round, so
it's fine.
Oh well. Let's get to the goaltender. Another goaltender, absolutely massive goaltender, playing with Chaika in the MHL in Russia, is Igor Rybkin.
I will fully say he's not one of my favorite goaltenders. Obviously, 6'7", he's huge. It's a huge part of his game, guys. Look, you know what you're getting with these big goaltenders. They're big, and they cover a lot of the ice. These are not guys that you can sort of beat one-on-one. But when rebounds happen, that's where things kind of get out of control. But with Ribkin, he moves a little bit better than your typical 6'7" goaltender. However, he's not my favorite 6'7" goaltender in this draft class. There's a guy from Brandon, Philip Rushika, who's my favorite of the guys who are super uber tall. But Ripken's a good bet. I mean, he had a very good year this year. If not also injured, he was kind of injured for most of this year. I don't think he played a game after November, if I'm correct, right? He played 11 games this year. So there we go back with the sample size. But he has that track record of playing really well at every single level and being just that big goaltender. I don't think he's a guy that goes particularly high, so he will definitely be available in the 4th round. And if you want that big goaltender, man, there you go. You got it. But me personally, I prefer a guy like Philip Rushika, who I think is a little bit quicker, a little bit more of a battler, more of an athletic guy. And he had more of a proven track record this year because he played more games. I'm not blaming Rebkin for getting injured, but yeah.
Do you think that small sample size, quote unquote, problem is a larger issue to utilize against one position versus another? So for instance, a goaltender's small sample size versus a forward or a defenseman?
Absolutely, especially for goaltenders. I do think that works against him in this sort of scenario because goaltenders can perform one way or another for a stretch of time and then kind of like level out more. Because they're a player. That's a position where you need to see a repeated sample size over and over again. You need to see how this guy performs game after game after game. Because there are games where they'll be phenomenal, and then it's like a statistics problem, right? In Miss Garvey's freshman year statistics class, you kind of have to level out the sample size. There's going to be outliers. There's going to be things, but once you get to the point where you get to the middle and what the median is, you kind of know what he is. In 11 games, that's a little bit tough. With him not playing since fall of my senior year of college, that's kind of crazy. So I don't know if that's a guy I want to bet on too much. I think it's different for if a center or a defenseman or a winger kind of plays only 11 games. One of the reasons why I give Lagerberg Cohen a lot of breathing room is because I think with wingers in 9 games, you can get more of a sense of what type of player they are through 9 games than you can with a center, a defenseman. Those are more complicated positions where you kind of need to see more. With a winger, obviously, I'm not saying it's the easiest position, but it is pretty one-dimensional where you can see someone's game and be like, okay, this is what he can do game after game after game. Preferably, you would like to see a sample size above 25 games. That's my rule. If you hit that 25 game mark in a season, I'm like, okay, that's a pretty appropriate sample size. But with goalies, you would like to see them play more than 11 games, and it's okay. I'm not going to blame him for it. I think he's obviously going to do well. I mean, he's not somebody who was ranked second for European goalies by Central Scouting for no reason. This is a very talented player. It's a guy who gets on pucks really well. I just prefer some other goalies. That's just kind of where I land with this.
Fair enough. Dom, did you have anyone else that you wanted to throw at Linc for the potential 4th round? I know, like I said, this is the busiest round of the draft. So,
yes.
So at 157, the draft pick that they picked up from San Jose earlier this week. You'll have to pardon my Russian here because I'm going back to Russia. And McKeen's did as well. 157 is Vlad Mateev, 6'2", 190-pound right shot defenseman. Your thoughts there, if you could, please, Linc.
We see this type of player every single year from Russia. Guys who are great skating defensemen. Dudes who can fill out. He's 6'2". He's a right shot. He skates very well. This is a guy that I've seen on many defensive shifts, close gaps, really, really well. This is a guy that I've been high on at times, but I understand that this is a bigger project than people are really leading onto. There's more of an offensive upside that is not there, that needs to be developed. And if you're getting a guy who is going to be all defense, that's fine to get in the 5th round. But the Russian factor still sort of exists in a sort of way. You don't know if this guy is going to come over in a couple of years. You don't know if he's going to develop into an Alexander Nikishin, or he's just going to be, just Vzevlad Matveyev playing for Spartak Russia his entire career. That's sort of where you kind of draw the line with this. I think this is a talented player. This is a guy who skates very well. This is a guy who can get physical at times. I don't think that's the most pressing part of his game, but he's good at killing plays. This is a guy who I definitely would bet on in the 5th round. This is a very good bet in the 5th round, conservative, just smart, reliable. He's going to have a long development path, but I'd rather have that than kind of drafting some player that I really don't think has a lot of potential to play. Like, I would rather draft a guy like Matveyev here than a all offense sub 5'10" winger at this point. So that's just kind of where I land. But I think the Bruins would agree with me too at that point. This is not a horrible bet at the 5th round. I also wouldn't mind him being reached for in the 4th round, maybe the 3rd, but that may be a little bit high. But he has high upside, great skater. You see what he has, but it's a long development path. He's raw. There's a couple players that have been like him in many drafts. You see these athletic Russian defensemen every single year, and this is another version of that.
Chris, you got anything there?
I don't. Admittedly, I didn't have much time to adjust after the trade for the 5th round. And I know right now they don't hold any picks in the 6th round, but unless there were any other names between the 5th and possibly, 6 rounders who might be on that edge, Linc, was there anyone else that in that space before we jump to the 7th round where, the best values are?
Well, guys, look, once we're at the 4th and 5th round, I could throw out names at you, but like it's so much conjecture. There's going to be so many people falling, rising. This is where teams just pick their guys. So I'm not going to really insert my own people in unless I really feel strongly about somebody. But I'm not going to be like, yeah, Bill from the Okanagan, he's going to go in the 5th round. Like, no, I'm not going to do that with you guys. But I'm credit to you guys for finding all of these guys who that you feel like are going to fit in this role. And I think past the 4th round, it really becomes conjecture.
Well, it's funny you say that because whenever it's out a ranking, what I do, Linc, is I immediately 7th round and see who and how it compares to mine. And then the rest of it, if you're close there, the rest of it is going to fall into place all the way to the 1st round. And I'll admit, when McKeen's rankings came out, first thing I did is I went down to that 216 spot, and we have 2 guys in virtually the same area that I want to talk about. So I knew then that the rest, barring those 2 exceptions where we're off quite a bit, the rest of it pretty much fell into place. So a little bit of consistency or cohesiveness is the word I'm looking for. But 2 guys that really interest me in the 7th round is I know they're both going to be long-term, which is what you kind of want. I mean, you look at the guy they just traded, a way to get these picks in what's his name, Chris?
Andre Gasso.
To San Jose. Andre Gasso. So, like, he was a long-term project, and now he's finding himself under an NHL contract. Spent 4 years at BC. So, Darian Rosling, right shot defenseman out of the WHL, and Max Villain, a left shot defenseman out of the QMJHL. Your thoughts on those two guys?
So I'll go in the order that you mentioned them. Darian Rolsing from Germany. Yeah, big German guy, 6'7". I think he was selected by Wenatchee early in the CHL import draft. Look, guys, I'm not gonna lie to you. This is exactly as one dimensional as it gets. I repeat these phrases all the time. 6'5", right shot defenseman, big, can fill out, can skate. I mean, you kind of get that sort of player who can defend, who has a big reach, gets a little physical, but not physical enough to really bump him up too high. He can get mean behind the net. This guy can really mix it up along the boards sometimes, but he doesn't really have the speed to really ensure me that he's going to be just that difference maker. But it's always good to bet on big defensemen because these guys could fill out. They can get mean. They can get that power under him. He's gonna be playing in the WHL probably again next year, unless I'm crazy wrong. But
no, he
look,
is.
Obviously, look again, big defenseman. He didn't put up phenomenal numbers here at the WHL. I saw tape of him and I wasn't particularly impressed, but the size is going to carry him through. That's kind of what you have here. There's a couple of guys like that in this entire draft class, particularly some big high school guys that I've had to watch and be like, okay, I see why people have sent me here. It's just the size. But no, it's with Rolsing, he does have some aggressiveness that I think can carry him pretty far. He will be a selected pick in this year's draft, maybe even higher than the 7th round. You typically see 7th round being the guys where you really are taking chances on. So there might be some offensive guys taken here, and Rolsing will be picked in the 5th or 6th round. But he's a guy that I definitely think he's going to get picked. He's that archetype. It's always good to bet on big right shot D. I mean, I'm never going to critique teams for doing that. So,
but can
he skate? He can skate. You know, he moves. He moves pretty well. His reach. Look, his reach is really what you're asking for here on defense. When he's defending the rush, he's a hard guy to go around. You can't go to the middle with this guy. Even if he doesn't improve his skating too much, he will be a very competent defender, at least the WHL and potentially the NCAA level. All right, you're going to see a guy who's going to force you wide, and sometimes that's all you need. All right, he can develop into a guy who can become an NHL talent for sure. But for now, that's all he's really been doing in the WHL. And you know what? He's been fine. All right. He's not someone that he's like completely horrible, do not draft list type of guy. I don't think I do that for anybody on this list. But he's in case Darian's watching, he's not a bad skater, and he can definitely develop that power under him to become a better defender. And then with Max Villain, honestly, I will say, this is someone I didn't get too much viewings on this year, but he did pretty well. He did pretty well in the QMJHL playoffs. He was someone that's really where I got to see him more. I didn't realize it, but I actually saw him play in Sweden last year when I was in Malmö. I was studying abroad in Copenhagen for school, and it was half party, but I went to a lot of J20 games, SHL games. Went to Finland for a week, which was fun. Got to see a bunch of games there. And I saw this guy play. Granted, I was watching guys like Felix Carrel and Dominik Bedinka at that point. And I forget who else was on that team, but he isn't really a guy I remember too much. He turns 20 this year. He's big, and he uses that big all around the ice. I will say he's a better puck carrier than I really gave him credit for the last time I saw him. He moves the puck particularly well, and for a 6'3" defenseman, especially at a left shot, that's fine. That's really all you can really ask for. Nothing tremendously special with this guy, other than, again, size and his skating ability and the potential to be a puck carrier. But we look for guys who can be good in the retrieval game, and that's something that he can be, for sure. He's not a guy that I'm tremendously high on, but for sure, definitely a guy worth taking a chance on, especially at his age.
So anything else you want to add? That pretty much covers it. players, unless there's somebody else you really want to add, Linc?
Not necessarily. Maybe there was one guy, because you guys got me thinking about the QMJHL right now. There's another overager who I think would maybe work well in that second round slot that you guys have later in the first. Liam Lefebvre from Chicoutimi. He went to the Mem Cup this year. He's a very aggressive forward. Can play center too. This is a guy that I think it's a good bet on, especially if he is an overager. He surprised a lot of people. I think he's 6'3". Throws the weight around a little bit, but he uses it in an offensive manner. He could really just drive some play for people or drive people out of the way for the real play drivers. So that's another guy that I think we missed over. But other than that, I mean, you guys really look. You guys are the Bruins guys, so you guys watch this team day in and day out. I hope they do well. I really hope you guys build a good team around James Higgins. I think he's going to be a really special player.
Chris, any thoughts before Linc? We got to thank you for staying a little extra than we had said, but we greatly appreciate it. Chris, anything you want to?
Just a huge thank you to Linc for jumping on and giving us the time and giving us all this detailed information. Obviously, you know, we're all kind of throwing the darts at the dartboard. There's 31 other teams that we're not even accounting for on what they want or anything. So that's
what makes the draft fun.
But that's what makes it fun. Yeah, exactly. And just to be able to give us this information and take a little bit of time to do so, thank you so much.
Yeah, guys. No, look, I love talking prospects. I love talking about the draft. This is my favorite time of the year, guys. The draft is. We are literally a week away from day 2 of the draft. Day 1, we're less than a week away. It's crazy. I'm gonna be there. Yeah. I'm super excited. I'll be texting Dom. I'll be texting you guys both. I'll be like, hey, when you guys draft your pick, I'm like, oh man, what a horrible pick, right? I'm kidding. No, I'll be supportive. I'll talk to you guys about that. But yeah, no, I love talking about prospects. It's phenomenal. I love watching these guys play. I love kind of, writing about this. And it's my passion, and it's carried over, and it's something that I really love doing, and I love talking about this. So I can't wait to go to the draft. It's always so exciting. I can't wait to interact with some of the guys I haven't interacted with since Minnesota, interact with some people that I haven't met before. There's a couple of players and teams I would love to talk to and meet. And yeah, I'm excited. Hey guys, I'll text you, Dom, when you guys are on the clock, tell you who I think you guys are going to pick at that point. I don't know if you guys will be live, but I'll send you a text. I'll be like, hey.
Actually, I'm going to try and be there, Linc. So I'll let you know when we'll meet up. But
we'll connect. Yeah,
I'm going to try. We'll see how things. I've got 4 young grandchildren now that I'm babysitting all the time, so finding time for anything is impossible. But you guys at McKeen have been great to us over the last couple of years. Anytime we've had Brock on too, but anytime I message Brock, there's somebody that can come on the show. He mentioned you and for this episode, and I don't even think Brock and some, as you guys employ some really, really good people out there, and I appreciate you taking the time. I appreciate Brock and what they do. So I just want to say thank you and job.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Brock's been a great mentor to me.
You had mentioned earlier that you do a podcast as well. Is that something you want to plug
real
quick before you head out?
Yeah. Obviously, it's been a tougher year. I was a senior in high school. I was a senior in college this year. So I didn't post as much as I would have wanted to this year. But yes, I have my own podcast as well. I have my own blog and website. Both are found at New Wave Hockey. You can look at me at newwavehockey.com, or I'm on YouTube at just New Wave Hockey. I will be posting a draft video and a draft rankings. It'll only be a top 100 because, it's very tough to rank with great quality people that are outside of the top 100. I think one person can only do so much by himself. Yeah, I will be dropping that relatively soon. And yeah, I would love for people to check that out.
Awesome. Thank you so much again for jumping on.
Anytime, guys.
I would recommend people go check out Linc's work and McKeen's as well. Dom, did you have anything else before we let the fans go? We've kept them for the extra 20 minutes, but I'm sure many of them have appreciated the extra information from Linc. So
No, that's it. I get it, Linc. I'll let you know the draft. I'll shoot you a message, and
please do.
We'll have to have a cup of coffee or something.
For sure.
Thanks, buddy.
All right. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll be back next week, Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Welcome to the Dom.Hockey Podcast, proudly presented by Bench Rates. Created by a former hockey player, Bench Rates uses a proprietary algorithm to assign a true monetary value to a player's on-ice contributions and lets you compare that value directly to his cap hit. Bench Rates evaluates professional players across leagues worldwide, including the NHL and AHL. Learn more at benchrates.com. Also brought to you by McKeen's Hockey. McKeen's produces the premier NHL draft guide featuring more than 200 player reports and comprehensive rankings. They also deliver in-depth prospect coverage through their annual team-by-team rankings and their trusted hockey pool yearbook. Visit mckeens.com and subscribe for just $16.50 Canadian for 3 months.